Hey guys, Eric Barstow here with the Painting Business Pro Show, and today I've got Tom who is here joining me, and I'm excited to share Tom's story with you. He's got a really interesting path for how he got into the painting industry, and he's done some super cool projects we're going to get into. He mostly has turned his business into a commercial business in recent years, which is going to make him a little bit unique there. But also, I love his story because he's not his aim and his goal is not to build something massive. And he's built a really great business that just gives him a lot of freedom in his life, makes him great money, doing things he loves to do, which I think is the whole point of entrepreneurship. So really excited to hear his take on his business and what he's creating. This is the Painting Business Pro Show, where we share inspiring stories from people who are just like you, who have created extraordinary results in their business and their life. We'll take the mystery out of it and show you behind the scenes exactly how these results happen. There's a simple process and a roadmap to follow to create life-changing success in business. You are capable of more than you realize. So listen in, discover what's possible, and let's unlock your potential. Let's go. Thank you very much for joining me, Tom.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, brother. So, why don't you fill me in, man, on I only know a little bit, really, about like the state of your whole business and the whole journey. So let's start at just where it is today. What's the business like as of today?
Yeah, so I started in residential, like most people in the painting world, but today we're more or less commercial. We actually have a unique niche in painting. We're actually primarily a nonprofit, clientele-based commercial painting. So if you can think of how niche that is, people think that's kind of small, but when you think of how many churches, private schools, or other nonprofits that are indirectly or directly funded by government grants and whatnot, it actually adds up to be quite a lot. So yeah, we kind of dialed in that niche, and that's kind of what keeps us busy. The state of our business is pretty good right now. I also feel like when we're in this niche, there's a lot of predictability because these schools are, because they're privately funded, they dedicate money well in advance to certain projects, and so we're able to like work with them on multi-year investments in their facilities and stuff. So it kind of gives us more sustainability, and because we know what, they'll take a huge project and divide it into a couple chunks that we do over years. So it kind of gives us predictability as to what our numbers will be the next year. Can't really do that as well with other niche markets. So it's pretty exciting things going on with that.
Yeah, very cool, man. And what's the size of the business right now, and what's your team look like, with both painters and subcontractors, but also do you have any other team members like project managers, estimators, or office people or anything like that?
Yeah, so right now we have like a part-time project manager that we're trying to get more into full-time. I do have a full-time office manager, and then I do all the sales and marketing and a little bit of project management. So I technically only have about 2 employees, well, myself, 3, yeah. And then all the work is subcontracted, except in the summertime. I'm also a youth group leader at my church, so I actually teach a lot of kids who are college, high school age how to paint. And then in the summers, they do a lot of our exterior commercial repainting. We're trying to get more to them, trying to get them get more involved with the interior stuff, but obviously that's a little bit different, right?
No kidding.
A little higher risk profile there.
I was going to make a joke. I'm like, oh, you're training some painting crews out there. And then you're like, yeah, actually, we do have them do some painting.
Yeah, we do. I mean, on the exterior commercials, people don't mind. I mean, as long as the work's done, it looks pretty good. I mean, it's no different than those college companies that hire college kids to paint exterior homes. We're just doing that except...
Is it a free internship or are they paid?
No, they're paid. I think that probably wouldn't go over too well with.
Hey, for youth camp today, kids, we're painting a building.
Yeah. We do serve projects for youth group, and we do paint. And then everyone always looks at me like, Tom, you're supposed to be running this. Like, you do this for a living. I'm like, today's my day off. Like,
that is awesome.
You guys can paint that. But no, we employ like part-time students in the summer, but year round, it's the 3 employees and then subcontracted labor. If there's a job that requires, because sometimes you get in like situations where they require it to be employee based. Yeah. So then in that case, it'll actually be my project manager, my office manager, and I like actually doing the painting. That's pretty rare, but we've done it in the past because then we could like prove that we're direct employees. Sure. But yeah, it's really interesting because then we could in the summertime grow that profile of commercial nonprofits because they see our students out there learning on the job and like kind of like running the crews and everything.
Yeah.
So that buys in, like our clientele buys into that because they see that we're like supporting a bigger mission, a bigger, bigger strategy beyond just like, oh, we come and paint route. It's like, no, we're providing opportunities, skills training, and this for other students and the next generation of painters, frankly.
Right.
So it's pretty exciting.
Very cool, man. And then what's the revenue of your business trending for this year? Now that you know it's
so we're trying to get to $1 million this year. We're a little bit behind now. Our spring was a little low, but we're definitely ramping up now, being the summer months. So that's our goal for this year, $1 million.
Right. And then what's your, I know for you, it's not about, you're going to grow because you're going to grow, right? You're going to grow because you're like running a business and like you want to grow. But the goal for you isn't grow a massive company.
No, it's not.
Love what you do, build a cool business, serve people, and you've got a great lifestyle. So what's your lifestyle look like right now?
Yeah, so I'm able to travel a lot and kind of just do a lot of other things. Besides being a youth group leader, I also run Young Life, which is very similar, but it's just a different entity. So basically another youth group essentially. Yeah. But so I'm able to do all that outside because I have this time. Also, like I said, traveling and just able to give back to the community in more ways than I wouldn't really be able to do otherwise if I weren't owning my own company. Yeah. But yeah, it's just really cool to see that, like, if you hire the right people and get the right team and the right people on the seats of the bus, you actually do go places. I started this company when I was like 18, which is 10 years ago. And man, it took me a long time to figure out, how to navigate and how to get the right people doing the right things in the systems. So I think to encourage people, it doesn't happen overnight. I'm 10 years in and we're finally pretty dialing everything in a little bit. So it's really exciting to see what the future has. Yeah.
So aside from, can you say just a little bit more about like some lifestyle stuff? I know you've been traveling. You said you just got home from somewhere last night. Like what is this?
Yeah. So I just came back from vacation for a week and a half last night. It gives you the freedom of lifestyle.
Where were you?
I'm young and single, so I can travel when I'm not running my company. But yeah, mainly just like lifestyle, like the freedom, like I kind of like how you always promote all the time is having a business kind of gives you that freedom to go where you want, when you want, help people when you want, and just have that culture of striving to help out the community because you have that time and resources and energy, that a lot of other people wouldn't have otherwise.
How many trips a year are you taking these days?
So this year I'm doing 5.
Okay.
So I did 2, I got 3 more.
5 on the books so far.
Yeah. Well, okay. One of them is going out to Fort Collins in like a week.
There you go.
Business Pro. But okay, so 4 if you don't count that one.
Yeah.
But
all right, nice. And then what does your work, like your work week, your work schedule, like what does that look like if we just zoom in on that part of your life?
Yeah, I kind of just work as much as I want. Right now, I love working and I love selling, and I love meeting people, and I love like getting to know our existing client base better. Yeah. Because we've established this kind of nonprofit commercial sector, they're ongoing relationships. So they pretty much just call every year for those projects, like I mentioned earlier. So obviously you still have to sell, but when you have the history and the track record with these institutions, they just hire you. Like colleges, couple private colleges out here. I'm in Chicagoland, so there's a lot of colleges out here that are privately funded colleges. So they hire us for their work in the summer months primarily. And I just love selling. So I love going to work every day because I'm just able to like meet people, talk to people, be genuine, and to help them solve their problems. Right? They're looking for a company that's affordable, a company that really helps their institution save money, but does it at a quality. And it does it in a quality way. And they're looking for someone that, they could build that relationship with. I've heard before from other companies or from other clients that like, we've hired this company, but they come in, kind of do, what they're supposed to do. And then they're out and there's no real like rapport there. So as part of us giving back to the community, it's like, we might paint these institutions during the year, but then when they have their fundraisers, their 5Ks, their this, that, and the other thing, like we sponsor them. So our name is there, their reputation is there. Like we're part of their community as much as they're part of our community. And that really goes a long way in this kind of niche space we've carved out for us over the last like 10 or so years.
Yeah, that's really great. Have you always been in this niche, or have you been like slowly kind of moving into like, hey, this is going to be our niche?
No, yeah. So I'm a private school grad myself my entire life. So when I was in school, I'm going to start my painting company when I was in high school and getting right out of high school. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to paint houses, right? Because that's kind of like most people start. So I started in that, of course. My dad was a painter, so I had the connections and some leads. And painted houses for a couple of years, but then like my school that I went to growing up, they were the first ones to hire me for commercial work. And then the schools that we were playing sports, right, and the other schools that are affiliated with my school at the time, like they would hire us, and then the ball just kept getting bigger and bigger as it kept snowballing, right? Yeah. So eventually we're doing less and less houses, and then it kept growing. But no, I didn't really set out to be like, I'm going to start Chicagoland's commercial painting company. It was just like, I'm going to start a painting company.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like what it morphed into.
Well, I think it's I think it's a great strategy to narrow your niche down that much. And I think at the beginning you said a lot of people think it's crazy, like, oh, it just seems like such a small niche. And it's like the painting business is so big. There's so many things to paint. And when you get niched down like that, you instantly have an advantage. I mean, I think if you went into, bid one of these institutions or one of these buildings and someone else, and you're positioning like, this is what we do is we work with nonprofits. You can even hear, if you're listening to this, you hear Tom's talking like, you have the language down. Like you understand what they want. You understand your customer better than someone who's randomly bidding on that. You have positioned your company to be a match for that client base. Like you have so many advantages going into those bids, and there's no shortage of work. When you niche down like that, it makes it really easy for you to find your ideal customers too.
Right.
I mean, you look up all the private schools, all the churches, exactly where to go to get your clients when and if you want them.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, they all know each other, so it's just a matter of networking and getting, the concepts down, good, take pictures of your work and showcase people, hey, this we did this college, we could do that for your college,
Right.
So
I know that you said, hey, I've been doing this for 10 years. It doesn't happen overnight, and also I'll come back to that. When did you take over and start the business?
2014.
How old were you at that time?
18. I actually did a landscape company 2 years prior. So when I was 16, for 2 years, I did landscaping. Then I did all painting.
Okay, got it. So you did it, took it over then, and then it's, been this journey. So, but now that you're 10 years in, I'm guessing, so tell me if this is true. Do you feel like you really, like you've made the business simple now? Like, does it seem simple for you now?
I think narrowing down your niche makes it a lot simpler for sure. Yeah. We're still, dialing in systems and whatnot to make it more efficient. I mean, that's never going to end, right? That's any business. You're always improving.
Yeah, but that part never ends.
Yeah, you're always learning.
It's like, as soon as I get to this size, I'll be done. And it's like, nope, the bigger it gets, the more systems you have, the more you need, and they all have to be improved. And the more people you have, the more problems you have. Size does not solve things.
That's why going back to one of your questions the other day was like, you don't want to be this massive company. I'm like, no, I'll be happy at 2-3 million. I mean, maybe even less. Like what we have here, I think if we just sustain that, we keep the people working that we have, we keep the subcontractors we have working. They love working with us. We love working with them. It's sustainable for me. And I think that's exciting. Now, if it grows bigger, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'm not losing sleep overnight trying to make the biggest painting company in Chicagoland.
Well, and if we think about, if I were to just say, hey, the business, the most important parts is finding potential customers, turning those customers into sales, and then delivering to those customers, right? That's the three core functions of the business. And then, you need to layer your numbers under that. And then you need to layer each of those with systems. Like this is our systems for delivery, our systems for sales, our systems for attracting customers. I feel like that part's probably simple for you now. Like if you had to
Right.
start over, no, just if all you had was your knowledge right now,
Yeah.
how
If I knew what I do now, I would have gone strictly from the beginning into this niche. But
yeah.
it took me 3, 4, 5 years to just get in and establish the niche, another couple years to grow it.
Yeah, so
But
make it so. Let's just pretend someone's listening to this and they're like, "This sounds really interesting," and their niche might not be nonprofits. It might be like, "Hey, my niche is office buildings, or my niche is HOAs. My niche is multifamily. My niche is, fill in the blank." Um, for your niche and what you do, how do you make marketing and finding customers easy, and getting opportunities to bid easy? Like how walk us through how you do that.
yeah, so commercial is a little bit different, right, than residential. I mean, commercial, it's primarily cold calling and finding the lists of all the people in charge at each institution, right? So we'll run. I mean, Chicago City itself, and Chicagoland is the third largest, population area in the country. So you just got to go find that information. A lot of it's free on the internet, but you could pay companies to get you lists of people that are in charge of all these institutions, and a lot of it's just cold calling, emailing them several times. Obviously,
Yeah.
We mail them stuff. And then a lot of it is, like I said earlier, it's relationship driven. So we go to these functions, like we'll go to fundraisers for this college that we painted. And then, the president of the other college that's a sister to like maybe that college, right, is there. And so we'll get introduced as, hey, this is Tom. Like he painted these buildings for us on our campus. And I start talking to him, right? And that's all relationship driven. So there's a little bit of marketing and a little bit, and the rest is just all relationships. It makes it a little bit harder to scale in terms of the timeline, right? It's all patience. You could get a faster growth with a different niche for sure. But I like what we do. I'm happy where we're at in terms of the people we deal with.
Yeah.
So there's no special sauce if that's what you're asking.
No, well, I don't agree. I think there is. So let's look at it though. It's not. See, that's why this is two of us doing this interview, because for you it's not special, but I work with hundreds of thousands of people, through and have through this industry, and I know what a lot of them would want to know from you right now is, okay, hold on. So how do you get these clients? What do you said cold call? Okay, great. You get a list. Anybody? I'm not going to go into detail on getting a list and the people that call, but what is pretend it's just one person. Your list is one person. Like, what's the call look like? What's the email look like? What do you mail them? How often are you reaching out to them? Like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, so I reach out to the same people. I try to 3-4 times a year, but I probably only get to maybe 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay.
But we are I just can't randomly send them my stuff, right? Like you said. So I have to introduce myself, why I'm relevant, right? So I'm not a commercial painting company. I'm a commercial painting company with the experience to help your nonprofit, right? So you convey that in your marketing, you convey that in your call, your email, or your in-person meeting, and you lay out why I should be your best choice, right? They're very tailored down to why we have the experience to help you save money and give you quality work. Because sure, every business is looking to save money, but every nonprofit is looking to save even more money, right? Because their finances are very limited. So I think it's just getting in there and perceive and trying to present to people why you're there in the first place. Like, you're not there just to make money and help them out. You're there to build a relationship so that they could call you in the future and ongoing and be a partner with them in their facility maintenance plan. And that's something that, took me this long to figure out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's the secret sauce though, is it's about building a relationship. It's about making a partnership with people. It's about, I've got to do all these touch points. Have you tried doing more, or is that more, I do that many because you're kind of just patient with your growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think with most entrepreneurships, I do get shiny object syndrome. So I do get other opportunities I try and chase. So that kind of distracts me from dialing this in more. But I think it's just focusing in and really getting set on that set market of those specific people that are in charge, the gatekeepers, right? And the people that make the decisions, and really perceiving to them like, I'm here to help you, not just, I don't want a one-time painting job.
Well, and that kind of blends right into your sales process too. Like, how do you see the sales process being different? Because you got to remember, Tom, like a lot of people who are listening to this, they haven't done a lot of commercial, or if they have, they haven't done it for like 6-7 years or whatever, or 10 years. So they've like got a random bid and they like threw a bid together and tried to win it. And
Yep.
so just remember that like it might be obvious to you because you've been doing it for 10 years, but for some people it's like, shoot, I'm like taking a shot in the dark. Like what's the sales process look like?
Yeah, so I think once we do get into the door, we get the meeting with them or a meeting with someone at their institution. The sales process is very similar to what you do anywhere else, except I think there's a lot more things you have to do to get to the closing part of the process, right? Like in other stages, you're like quote or call, initial call, estimate, right? Sign right here. Well, that or don't, right?
Right.
But in commercial, especially in this space, it's not. It's usually call and then several calls, really. Then you get the meeting, you get their foot in the door, you present to them who you are and why you're there to help them. You get to see what they're looking at getting bid out, but that's not always the case that year. So then you have to follow up with them. Like, hey, you're going to do this project? Yeah, we are. Okay, so now what's the number? Then you usually have to go back out and then do the actual quote with the person.
Where I lost you is touch point. Like it's like this long drawn out process. And
it's different for every client, right? Like some nonprofits are like, you meet with this guy, give him the quote the same day. Oh yeah, I'll get back to you, next day. Okay, yeah, when can you start? That's pretty much like what a residential project would be in a way. But then, like I said, some of these sales cycles for these other institutions, it takes years. I mean, I'll give you an example. My own college that I graduated from, when I was a senior in college, they had 2 buildings that need painting. They're old wood dormitories. And I put a bid in. And I graduated. And every year, for 4 years, I would revise that bid and meet with someone. And then guess what? 5 years later, get the call. So that just shows you that sometimes it might take 5 years to get a contract. So.
Dude, you should never give up. It doesn't take long to make that one call. I mean, it took you 5 hours. How big was the job when you got it?
It was each dormitory was like 20,000, so it was like $40,000 of work. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, not huge, but I mean, it was enough. And also,
it was worth a few phone calls.
Yeah, I mean, and then it was my own college that I graduated from, so obviously I gave them a pretty good rate. But
yeah, exactly. They would have paid you anyway.
Well, I already paid them to go to school there, and then they just paid me back to paint their buildings.
Yeah, there you go. I guess so. Very cool, man. And then what about production? Like, what have you learned around production? So obviously you use subcontractors. Phil, I mean, these are all repaints, right? That you're doing?
Yeah, very few are new construction. We just started getting more and more into we work now with a general contractor that does a lot of nonprofit general contracting. So he does like what we do, except he does it for the whole, the whole build. He's based in Chicagoland here. So we just started working with him. So we're starting to do a little bit more new construction, nonprofit painting. But yeah, primarily a lot of it is the repaints. So I'm bidding structures that I could physically see. I could see the substrate. I could see all the logistics involved. So it's a lot more predictable than like new construction blueprint. Here you go, figure it out kind of thing.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest failures that or most expensive lessons you've learned in commercial work?
Oh, I should have had my systems dialed in 8-9 years ago, Eric. I should have. That's where I lost all my money. Hiring the wrong people, and that's on me, obviously, as the owner. It was just
unfortunately it's all on.
Yeah, I mean, I hired the wrong people because I didn't take my time to vet the whole process, right? I was like, hey, we need a person to do this. They seem good. We interviewed them. Resume checked out. Okay, great. And that was my bad. Like, I should have really focused in more on like making sure they're the right cultural fit, the right, just everything. Make sure all the T's were crossed and the I's dotted. But that was just me trying to rush things. Like you're talking about today earlier, like there's no shortcuts. So
Yeah.
obviously I was like every entrepreneur in the beginning, like just looking for shortcuts. I'm like, okay, this guy looks good. We'll hire him. We'll do this. And then boom. But
Yeah, it's funny because you and I can say that, and if someone's listening to this who's a few years in or a little younger, that in their entrepreneurial journey, and we say don't take shortcuts, they're like, I'm not taking a shortcut. I'm just finding a better way to do it. Or it's like it doesn't register as a shortcut. It's like, no, dude, I'm just moving fast. I'm hustling. Like there's some arrogant thing there where it's like, man, anyways, as you were saying that, Tom, as you're like, I should have taken my time with hiring people. I rushed it. I'm like, totally, man. I did that. So many people learned that lesson. And I think the people who haven't learned that lesson the hard way yet, they just have to. It's like if no matter what we talk about right now, it won't impact the people who haven't yet learned it. The people who have learned it are going to nod their heads along like, yep, you got to take your time to get the right hire. Because it's just like, it's one of those lessons that's really hard to learn unless you learn it the hard way.
There's no way learning it other than the hard way, unfortunately. Just if you're going to fail, I mean, everyone does fail fast, fail often, but fail quick, like get back right up, that's.
Yeah. What were there any other big commercial, like specific to commercial mistakes you made along the way?
Yeah, I mean, memorable ones. I mean, we did a job that was probably supposed to be 100,000. I mean, we did it for like 50, and ends up costing like 75. So there's a quick way to lose 75,000 or 25,000.
How did that happen?
I mean, this is years ago. So, I mean, again, I was just rushing it, like I've done something similar to that size before, just a little bit bigger, right? Add some extra money, rush the process, right? And then, that's one quick way to lose some money there. So
well, did you not measure it, or were there things that you didn't look at that were included in the bid, but you didn't bid for them? Can you get more specific?
Yeah, it was just rush job. Like you said, in terms of like, there's details you have to look at. Like, it was a school that was being renovated. So like, if you don't count for all the new drywall, that's going to soak up all this primer. Like, of course, then you're like, oops, now I got to spend $5,000 on primer. It comes down to the details. So, this is 5-6 years ago now. So it was just coming down to like, I thought I was young, arrogant, thinking I knew everything. So it's like, oh, this is what it should be. Here's my price. But when you get the guys on,
they're like, that looks great.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'll make a quick 50% profit margin. I'll be good. And then you walk away with a loss of 33% of the total.
So what have you put in place to help you with that in commercial? Is it just like the scope of work something similar, like that scope of work checklist that you've got with Scott, or like what do you have? Because I mean, at the time, was it you were rushing, or was it like I didn't really think about that, and I didn't think about that, like.
It was just the systems, like you said, the estimating systems. In terms of like figuring out everything from like A to Z, right? I would just jump around to get to Z, and then here's my price. But you got to go through the whole process. We work with Scott Lawler for commercial consulting, and he has processes and systems. They're like, hey, did you think about this? Did you think about this?
Are you working with him? Are you working with him as a he's a
coach?
Oh,
he's coach for us. Yeah. Yep. We're one of his clients.
How often do you?
We've been with him for on and off for like 3.
Since we did the commercial course together?
Yeah, so was that 2021?
Nice. We launched that because I built it right at the beginning of COVID, because I'm like, well, this year's fucked. I guess we'll go build a commercial business model. And so that's when we launched that. And then you've had him as like a monthly call with him ever since?
Yeah, on and off for about 3 years. Yeah. I met him in 2020, like you said, through you.
Yep.
He actually lives 30 minutes from me. So that was kind of cool.
He's such a good dude.
Shout out Scott. But yeah, so we work with like people like Scott that are like, hey, did you think about this, and this? So but I didn't have that when I did this 5-6 years ago, right? So I was just like, hey, this sounds good to me. What's the worst that can happen? I mean, losing, $20,000-$30,000 is still a lot. I mean, that's catastrophic. But you could still, and especially in the commercial space, you can make that money back, but it's going to take a little while. But I'm still young, so I can bounce back from those failures. Still am. So, but I think it's just, it's just like I said, there's no shortcuts. You can't rush the process. So especially in commercial estimating, it's like there's so many things you have to figure out. And what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of times you're working with other contractors. And something that I've had to learn is like, if you want to go in and do this day, they might have another contractor doing something else there, and that can throw your whole schedule off. I mean, that's way more common in obviously new construction, but like even in repaints, nonprofits, most of the work it's getting done in the summer. Like we're slammed in the summer because that's when every school and it's closed down for summer, so they get all the work done. So they're going to have other contractors there.
That's why you get your free youth workforce out there.
Yeah, but they're going to have other contractors there. They're like, hey, you can't paint that whole side of that building today because we have the concrete guys laying entire sidewalk in front of it, right? So it's like, well, no one told me that. And so, it's you have your headaches in any kind of niche that you choose, right? But it still happens in commercial repaints too.
Yeah, that's good, man. All right. So, one of the things that Christiana had here was like, one of the big beliefs that changed for you was like just getting coaches, but not just in business. So obviously we work together, but then you've worked with Scott. Are there any other people that you've used as resources, or what other resources have you tapped into, for your business?
For my business life, other people, it's just people in the group of Painting Business Pro.
Yeah.
We have a Facebook group, and I reach out to different people. Different people reach out to me. I have a accountability group that we established with Painting Business Pro. Shout out Mario and Omar. They're in my accountability group. So, we jump on calls every 2 weeks, kind of just talk shop and how it's going, and I think surrounding your business life with good coaches and good like peers that are in the space and good programs like what you have established here. And communities that revolve around those programs is just really important, because otherwise you're on an island by yourself, and that doesn't really go anywhere, and that's no fun. So,
what Christiana mentioned that you started working on good coaches in other parts of your life too. What other kind of?
Oh yeah, I mean, so in every part of your life, in your life commitments, you have like domains of your life, right? So I was never the guy that sought out coaches or experts in each domain, right? I kind of just figured like, I'll figure it out. But that's not the case anymore. So now it's like, okay, like if I'm going to be like the best, like I could be physically healthy wise, right? I'm going to have to hire a personal trainer and go to the gym. Like I just started doing that this year. So now it's like, you got that. And then it's like, okay, I got my business coaches. We talked about that. But then it's like, okay, now I need like someone who's going to be like my coach in like time management and planning and that kind of stuff. And then you got like your pastor or other spiritual coaches in that domain of your life that you meet with on a regular basis, or that I meet with on a regular basis. So it's like in each area, I'm actually finding coaches now. That wasn't the case, 18 months ago or 12 months ago.
Interesting. So here's the part I'm curious about is like, what changed about like your beliefs or views? Because I think there's a lot. I mean, you're preaching to the choir, right? I've been very bullish on hiring coaches and mentors and paying for programs and joining masterminds, and like I've been pretty crazy about that for like 17 years. And I think it's something anyone should do. If anyone in any field that's at the top of their game has a coach or a mentor or a peer group, and usually all of those things. So if you want to really get serious about your health, or you really want to serious about being a great father, or you want to get really serious about business, or you want to get really serious about managing your finances and building wealth, like you should get a coach. So, however, so many people don't. Now, part of it is like it's a luxury to some degree, right? Because it costs money. But what changed your mind? Like, how did you go from like, what was your view of it before, and what's your view of it now?
Yeah, I mean, I never disagreed with getting the coaches in each area, but I think I was just afraid to take the first steps, and maybe some of it was, like you said, a lot of it costs money, but a lot of people are afraid to invest in themselves, and myself included. Because, I mean,
Yeah.
I started seeing your videos when I was in college, and I didn't get the course till like 3-4 years later, right?
Yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah, so it's just like, because you like see like, oh, it costs money. I'll just digest the free stuff, and that'll get me to where I want to be. That's not the best approach. And obviously I tried that, but it's like, just I decided to like, get serious, invest in these areas, hire the right people, and just really get in tune with spending money on myself to develop myself so that way I could like actually create the future that I want, right? Because otherwise you're just spinning your wheels and you're just, oh, nothing's changing. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on, right? Like, I mean, I've tried this, try that. It's like, no, you got to dial in, get the coaches, get the accountability there to make sure you're implementing change to really change the trajectory of where you want to go.
What's been your experience on the other side where you're like, yeah, it costs money. I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if I can justify it. Kind of that view to it, and then investing in it. Like, what difference has it made to? What difference has it made? Not in business as much as the business is obvious. You've already spoken to it, but in any other areas of life, what?
Yeah, I mean, just like in other areas of my life, right? It's like I should have been doing this years ago. I mean, I could still make up for lost time a little bit, right? Because I'm young, but it's like, man, if I started this when I was 20, like where would I be now, right? So now it's like, okay, if I'm seeing results already, 18, 12 months in after implementing some of these changes, like where will I be in 2, 4, 5, 6 years, right? So that's exciting. And just finally dialing in.
How do you justify with that, with what you've seen? Like, does that help you justify investing in it?
Yeah,
like
yeah, for sure.
How do you kind of justify that investment now that you've seen the
Right.
benefits?
So now that I've seen benefits and growth in those areas and actually measure the results, right? Because these coaches that I hired had systems to track everything, right? So now that I can actually physically see results in these areas, it makes you get excited. It makes you want to actually sometimes spend even more money to, go to the next tier and like really improve yourself even more. And I just think a lot of people are afraid to do that. And I would just encourage them to, dive in. Like, obviously, you might not be able to do all the areas at one time, but maybe focus on one a year for X amount of years.
Have you noticed a positive impact on your business with some of the personal investments you've made on yourself outside of business?
Yeah, I think when you have a lot of other areas in your life kind of more dialed in, it makes you like better in business because you're more calm and more like well-rounded, right? Because a lot of people, if they're not so much dialed in other areas, it kind of bleeds into their business, right? So they're not performing where they want to perform because they're stressed out about these other areas. So I think if you dial in the other areas as well as your business, you're able to perform better in your business.
Was that what your experience was just for you?
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's, I asked because like I for sure have seen that, for myself, but like we hammer that with, as but we hammer that with like our whole company and organization and like all of our employees and our partners. And obviously we hammer that with Painting Business Pro. It's like, I've always seen, it doesn't always make sense. Like, how is that connected? But man, when people get a lot of things dialed in their personal life, their performance and their work improves. And so we pour into our people, in a lot of ways when it has nothing to do with
Right.
business, because we know it actually does have a lot to do with their performance and their work.
Yeah, I took some of what you taught me for the time management stuff and showed it to my youth group students, some of them. Yeah, and now they're like, oh my gosh, this is like life changing, because I broke it down how like you break it down, right, in the areas.
Yeah.
And it helps college students navigate their college life better, because they're like, wow, I worked for this guy who was a painting contractor in the last summer, but he showed me this that he does in his personal life, and now I use it and it really helps me in my college life.
The shit works, man. I love that. I was gonna ask how old they were. I wasn't sure if they were high school or college. So that makes sense at college. I mean, it's a game changer. Just something as simple as that is like get your ass organized and your performance is gonna improve, and your quality of life is gonna improve. Very cool, man. Any advice you would have to somebody who's just to transition this a little bit? There's a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of people in residential painting who are curious about commercial painting, as someone who's transitioned to almost all commercial painting, what advice do you have to people? Like, who do you think should get, who is it for? Like, why should you get into commercial repaints? Why should you not?
I mean, my first advice would be to enter it slow. This is going to be a learning curve, which I know you touch on a lot. But my advice would be is just, I think you got to find a niche too, kind of like what you said. If you're in an area where there's just like tons of office buildings or warehouses or something, because I don't think it's kind of like residential, right? Like even if you're a residential painting company, most people have a niche, right? They're going to do, like I know one of my friends, he does like high end, right? And then another of my friends is like, no, we only do like stucco houses, right? Because they're in a totally different area, right? Because we can spray and we'll be done. He's in California. So it's like, same thing commercial. I think if you're getting into commercial, you got to find your niche too. Like, is it going to be warehouses? Is it going to be, schools, private or public? Is it going to be, or is it going to be new construction, just new construction? Or is it going to be repaint? It's primarily what we do. Like, I don't think you could be residential and just say, oh, all right, I'm going to be a commercial painter. Like, let's go bid every commercial opportunity that's out there, because they're totally different, right?
I think I certainly underestimated the nuances of the whole commercial market. Mm-hmm. That it's like, it's not just residential and commercial, and it's not just repaint and new construction. Then there's like, okay, we can get into nonprofit, and then warehouses or tilt ups. There's like a whole different space. Then you start kind of getting into some industrial. Industrial's a different world. And then you start getting into some of the prevailing wage stuff and government type work, and that's a whole different world. And so there's like, they're not just niches where it's like, oh, I do interior high. It's not even just high end and resident and normal and residential. It's like prevailing wage jobs compared to a commercial repaint is like completely different. Yep. I mean, all the paperwork, the sales process, the pricing, all the ways you need to document everything, and then industrial is dramatically different. So, I mean, I certainly underestimated that. That was one of the most valuable things for me learning was like, okay, this is the niche like we want to focus on, and we're super focused on it.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that stuff too. Like you said before, I narrowed it down to my niche that we do now. It's like we did the warehousing painting, we did the silo tanks, industrial stuff. But like you said, that stuff's way more complex. And I'm like, there's whole companies out there that just do that stuff. So why are we competing with them? They've been doing it for 20, 30, 40, 50. There's a company out here that's been doing it for 100 years. So it's like, why am I trying to beat them at their own game? I might as well create my own game, which is the nonprofit repaint. Yeah. So.
Awesome, man. All right, Tom, any last words? Anything else you'd want to share?
No, I would just encourage people to keep going, really. I mean, business is tough, but it's a lot easier when you have a community and people that you could talk to and rely on and, exchange ideas with. So I'd say don't do entrepreneurship alone.
Beautiful. Great. All right, man. Well, I like I said at the beginning, man, I appreciate just the focus that you put on lifestyle and the work you do and the people you do it with. I think that is admirable to not get caught in the just like grow. Like you have to do that. And that you're playing your own game. So I think that's awesome. And I think it's a hugely valuable lesson for people to see the value of like niching down, particularly in commercial. I think that's where it's, I preach that in residential in many ways, but I think that's a hugely valuable lesson to take away here. So appreciate you coming on, man. Appreciate everything you had to share, and congrats on where you're at, man. You're at a really exciting point right now with your business.
Thanks.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. I hope you found it valuable. We make these episodes in the show for you, truly. So your feedback is super valuable to us, whether it's, things you liked, things you didn't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. Any feedback you can give us is going to be super helpful as we continue to evolve and improve the show over time. And if you want a copy of the Fast Growth Roadmap for Painting Contractors, which really simplifies the steps you take to building a business, we've got that resource for free for you. Just check the description or the bio
below where you're watching or listening to this episode, and you can just click and download that for free, and it should help give you a good roadmap for how to build and scale your business like the people that you're listening to on the show. So thanks for listening in. We'll see you soon.